I was mowing the lawn when I heard my daughter crying. I ran inside. My mother-in-law had her arm twisted behind her back. My daughter was on her knees. My mill was whispering, "If you ever tell your daddy what's in Grandma's closet, I'll make you disappear like the other one." I grabbed her wrist. "Let go. Now." She laughed. "You won't do anything." My daughter sobbed, "Daddy, there's something horrifying inside." My mother-in-law stopped laughing. Before we begin, please subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now let's begin. The screen door slammed behind Benjamin McCarty as he stepped into the August heat, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The scent of fresh-cut grass already hung in the air from the neighbors' yards, a reminder that he'd put off his own lawn for too long. His workshop in the garage called to him. 3 custom furniture orders waiting, but Kay had given him that look over breakfast. The one that said the lawn wasn't going to mow itself. He fired up the old Toro, its engine sputtering to life after the second pull. The rhythmic drone settled into his bones as he guided it across the front yard, his mind drifting to the cherry wood dresser waiting on his workbench. Benjamin had always found peace in creating things with his hands, shaping raw materials into something beautiful and lasting. It was why he'd left his office job 6 years ago to open his custom carpentry business. The pay was less predictable, but he slept better at night. His daughter Emma appeared in the front window, pressing her nose against the glass and waving enthusiastically. Benjamin grinned and waved back, watching her 8-year-old face light up with that gap-toothed smile that made every difficult day worth it. She disappeared from view, probably heading back to whatever elaborate game she'd constructed in the living room. The McCarty household occupied a modest 2-story colonial in a quiet subdivision outside Richmond, Virginia. Benjamin had spent 2 years renovating it himself. New floors, updated kitchen, a workshop in the garage that was his sanctuary. Kay worked as a nurse at the county hospital, pulling 12-hour shifts 3 days a week. They weren't wealthy, but they'd built something solid together, something that felt like it could weather any storm. At least, that's what Benjamin had believed until recently. His wife's mother, Lorraine Willard, had been spending more time at the house over the past 6 months. At first, it made sense. Kay's father had passed away the previous winter, and Lorraine claimed the empty house made her lonely. She'd show up unannounced, let herself in with the spare key Kay had given her, and settle into their lives like she'd never left. Benjamin had tried to be understanding. Grief did strange things to people, but something about Lorraine had always unsettled him, even back when he'd first started dating Kay 9 years ago. The woman had a way of watching people, her pale blue eyes cataloging every gesture and expression like she was gathering intelligence. She smiled often, but it never quite reached those eyes. Kay insisted her mother was just protective, a bit old-fashioned in her ways. Benjamin had learned to tolerate Lorraine's presence for his wife's sake, swallowing his discomfort during family dinners and holiday gatherings. Lately, though, Emma had been different around her grandmother. Quieter, more withdrawn. She used to chatter endlessly about her day, her friends, her elaborate imaginary worlds. Now she often sat in silence, picking at her dinner, casting furtive glances at Lorraine when she thought no one was watching. When Benjamin asked what was wrong, Emma would just shake her head and say she was tired. Kay dismissed his concerns. "She's just getting older, Ben. Kids change." But Benjamin knew his daughter. Something was wrong. He finished the front yard and maneuvered the mower around to the back, his thoughts circling back to that morning's breakfast. Lorraine had shown up at 7:30, letting herself in without knocking. She'd made some comment about Benjamin still being in his pajamas, her voice sweet as honey and sharp as a razor. Kay had laughed it off, kissed Benjamin on the cheek, and headed upstairs to get ready for her shift. Emma had gone very still, her spoon suspended over her cereal bowl, watching Lorraine with those wide, frightened eyes. Benjamin's hands tightened on the mower's handle. He'd almost said something, almost confronted Lorraine right there in the kitchen. But what would he have said? "Your presence makes my daughter uncomfortable?" He had no proof of anything, just a gnawing instinct that something was deeply wrong. The back lawn was smaller, bordered by a privacy fence Benjamin had installed himself. He worked methodically, creating neat parallel lines in the grass, trying to quiet the unease that had settled in his chest like a stone. Kay's shift didn't end until 7. Lorraine had stayed after breakfast, claiming she wanted to spend time with Emma. Benjamin had agreed reluctantly, returning to his workshop to sand the dresser, his ears attuned to any sounds from the house. He was halfway through the back lawn when he heard it, a sound that cut through the mower's drone and sent ice flooding through his veins. Emma's voice, high and terrified, screaming for him. Benjamin killed the engine and ran. He burst through the back door into the kitchen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The screaming had stopped, replaced by a sound somehow worse, Emma's muffled sobbing. Benjamin followed it to the living room and froze in the doorway. Emma knelt on the hardwood floor, her small body trembling. Lorraine stood behind her, one hand gripping Emma's right arm, twisted up behind her back at an angle that made Benjamin's stomach turn. The older woman's other hand rested almost gently on Emma's shoulder, but there was nothing gentle in the white-knuckled grip. "Let her go." Benjamin's voice came out low and dangerous, barely recognizing it as his own. Lorraine looked up, and for just a moment, her mask slipped. The grandmotherly smile vanished, replaced by something cold and reptilian. Then it was back, the transformation so quick Benjamin might have imagined it. "Benjamin, dear, we're just having a little talk about respect." Lorraine's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Emma needs to understand that some family matters aren't for sharing." Benjamin crossed the room in 3 strides, but before he could reach them, he caught Lorraine's whisper to Emma. "If you ever tell your daddy what's in Grandma's closet, I'll make you disappear like the other one." The words hit him like a physical blow. Benjamin grabbed Lorraine's wrist, the one holding Emma's arm, and squeezed. "Let go. Now." Lorraine met his eyes and she laughed. Actually laughed, the sound high and crystalline. "You won't do anything, Benjamin. You never do. You just stand there with your sawdust and your little projects, playing at being a man while I—" "Daddy!" Emma's voice broke through Lorraine's monologue, raw with terror. "Daddy, there's something horrifying inside her closet. I saw it. I saw." Lorraine stopped laughing. The silence that followed felt alive, crackling with threat. Benjamin increased the pressure on Lorraine's wrist until she released Emma with a small gasp. His daughter scrambled behind him, her small hands clutching the back of his shirt. He could feel her shaking. "Get out of my house." Benjamin's voice was steady, but inside his mind raced. The other one? What other one? And what had Emma seen in Lorraine's closet? Lorraine rubbed her wrist, her expression shifting through emotions too quickly to track. Anger, calculation, fear, and finally settling on wounded innocence. "Kay will hear about this. Assaulting an old woman, scaring your daughter with your violence. I said get out. You're making a terrible mistake, Benjamin." Lorraine collected her purse from the sofa, moving with deliberate slowness. "Emma is a confused little girl with an overactive imagination. You're going to ruin this family over a child's fantasy." She walked to the door, paused, and looked back. "When Kay comes home, we'll straighten all this out. I'm sure she'll have questions about why you're keeping her from her mother." The front door closed with a soft click. Benjamin heard Lorraine's car start, the sound of tires on the driveway, and then silence. He turned to find Emma still pressed against the back of his legs, her face buried in his shirt. Kneeling down, he gently turned her to face him. Tears streaked her cheeks, and there were red marks on her arm where Lorraine had gripped her. "Emma, sweetheart, I need you to tell me everything. What did you see in Grandma's closet?" His daughter's eyes, so much like Kay's, dark and expressive, filled with fresh tears. "I wasn't snooping, Daddy, I promise. I was looking for the board game she said she had, the one with the fairies. She told me it was in her bedroom closet. But when I opened it," Emma's voice trailed off, her breath hitching. "It's okay. Take your time. There were pictures, Daddy. Lots of them. Pinned to the wall inside. Pictures of kids. Some of them were what, Emma?" "Crossed out. With red marker. And there were things. Like trophies. A little shoe. A bracelet. A stuffed rabbit." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "And there was a picture of a girl who looked like me. She had your eyes, Daddy. Your nose. And her picture had a red X through it too. Benjamin's blood ran cold. A girl who looked like Emma, with his features. Sarah, his first daughter. His baby girl who drowned 7 years ago in a tragic accident at the community pool. Sarah, who'd been 4 years old, bright and fearless and gone in an instant while her babysitter, Lorraine, who'd volunteered to watch her that day, had been distracted for just a moment. The official report had called an accident. A terrible tragedy. No one's fault, really, just one of those horrible things that happens. Lorraine had been devastated, or so everyone said. She'd cried at the funeral, held Kay as they both grieved, and never once had Benjamin suspected. But now, I'll make you disappear like the other one. Emma, when Grandma said the other one, did she say a name? Emma shook her head. No, but Daddy, there were so many pictures. Kids I didn't know, and they all had red excess. Benjamin's hands trembled as he pulled Emma into a hug, his mind reeling. If what Emma was describing was real, if those pictures existed, then Lorraine wasn't just a manipulative mother-in-law. She was something far worse. Listen to me very carefully, he said, pulling back to look Emma in the eye. I need you to go upstairs and pack a bag. Just the essentials, clothes for a few days, your toothbrush, Mr. Whiskers. Mr. Whiskers was her stuffed cat, the one she'd had since she was 2. Can you do that for me? Emma nodded, her tears slowing. Good girl. And Emma, this is very important. Don't tell anyone what you saw. Not your friends, not your teachers, not even Mommy until I say it's okay. Do you understand? Is Mommy in danger from Grandma? The question, so direct, so perceptive, made Benjamin's heart ache. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but I'm going to find out, and I'm going to protect you. Both of you. I promise. Emma hugged him once more, fierce and tight, then headed upstairs. Benjamin listened to her footsteps on the stairs, waited until he heard her bedroom door close, and then pulled out his phone. His first instinct was to call the police. But what would he tell them? That his 8-year-old daughter had snooped in her grandmother's closet and found some pictures? That Lorraine had made a vague threat? Without seeing the closet himself, without evidence, it would be Emma's word against Lorraine's. And Lorraine was a master manipulator. She'd twist the story, make him look paranoid, unstable. She might even get a restraining order, gain sympathy, drive a wedge between him and Kay. No, he needed to be smart about this. Benjamin paced the living room, thinking, Kay will be home in 5 hours. Lorraine would call her before then, spin some story about Benjamin losing his temper, hurting her, frightening Emma. Kay loved her mother. She'd been devastated when her father died. Would she believe Benjamin over Lorraine? He wanted to think yes, but doubt gnawed at him. Kay had always defended her mother, always found excuses for Lorraine's behavior. She's from a different generation. She means well. She's just lonely. Benjamin needed evidence. Real, concrete evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. He grabbed his keys from the hook by the door and called up the stairs. Emma, stay in your room with the door locked. I'll be back in 30 minutes. Where are you going? To see Grandma's closet for myself. The drive to Lorraine's house took 12 minutes. She lived in a ranch-style home 15 minutes outside of town, surrounded by 3 acres of woods. Benjamin's hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind churned with possibilities. If Emma was right, if those pictures existed, then he was about to confirm his worst nightmare. And if Emma was wrong, if this was all some terrible misunderstanding, then he was about to commit breaking and entering against his mother-in-law. Either way, there was no going back. Lorraine's driveway was empty when he arrived. Her silver Toyota was gone, probably heading to the store or to a friend's house, somewhere she could establish an alibi while she planned her next move. Benjamin parked on the street, out of sight of the house, and approached through the tree line. The spare key was where Kay had told him it would be, under the 3rd flower pot on the back porch. Benjamin let himself in through the kitchen door, moving quietly despite knowing the house was empty. Every instinct screamed at him that this was wrong, that he should leave, call the police, do this legally. But he thought of Emma's face, the red marks on her arm, the terror in her voice. He climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor. Lorraine's bedroom was at the end of the hall, decorated in soft florals and lace, everything in its place. The bed was made with military precision. Photographs in expensive frames lined the dresser. Kay as a child, Kay's wedding day, Emma as a baby. A normal grandmother's room. Benjamin opened the closet door. At first, he saw only what you'd expect. Dresses, shoes, boxes of seasonal decorations. But Emma had said the pictures were pinned to the wall. He pushed the hanging clothes aside and felt along the back wall until his fingers found the edge of something. A false panel, cleverly disguised. It swung open. The small space behind it was maybe 3 feet deep, lined with corkboard. And covering every inch of that corkboard were photographs. Dozens of them. Children of all ages, some in school photos, others candid shots taken from a distance. Each photo had a date written beneath it in neat handwriting. And each one had a red X drawn through the child's face. Benjamin's vision blurred. He gripped the door frame to steady himself, his breath coming in short gasps. Emma had been right. God help them, she'd been right. His eyes found Sarah's picture, mounted in the center like a trophy. His baby girl, frozen at 4 years old, smiling at the camera with that gap-toothed grin. The red X was thick, angry, drawn with enough pressure to tear the photo slightly. Below the photographs, a shelf held objects. A child's sneaker. A hairbrush with strands of blonde hair still caught in the bristles. A small toy car. A bracelet made of plastic beads. Each item labeled with a name and date. And there, in the corner, Sarah's stuffed rabbit. The one she'd been holding the day she died. Benjamin's knees gave out. He sank to the floor, his body shaking with rage and grief, so intense he thought he might tear apart from it. Lorraine had killed Sarah, had killed these other children, and she kept trophies like some serial killer in a documentary. How many children had she taken? A sound from downstairs jolted him back to reality. The front door opening. Footsteps in the foyer. Benjamin. Lorraine's voice drifted up the stairs, pleasant and curious. I saw your truck, dear. Is everything all right? His phone was in his hand before he realized he'd moved. He snapped photos of everything. The wall of photographs, the shelf of trophies, Sarah's rabbit. Evidence. Undeniable evidence. Benjamin? I'm coming up. Her footsteps on the stairs. He closed the panel, shoved the clothes back in place, and stepped out of the closet just as Lorraine appeared in the bedroom doorway. She looked at him, at the closet behind him. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes went flat and dead. You shouldn't have done that, she said quietly. Benjamin held up his phone, showing her the photographs he'd taken. I'm calling the police. Right now. It's over, Lorraine. Is it? She tilted her head, studying him like he was a particularly interesting insect. And what exactly do you think you found? Some pictures? Children's toys? Kay collects toys for charity, you know. I store them for her. And the pictures. She shrugged. I volunteer with a grief support group for parents who've lost children. Those photos are a memorial wall. Nothing sinister about it. The red XS, Sarah's rabbit. An art project about angels. Lorraine smiled, and it was the coldest thing Benjamin had ever seen. And Kay gave me that rabbit after Sarah died. Said it brought her comfort to know I had something of Sarah's. She was already building her defense. Already had the lies ready. Emma saw this. She'll testify. Emma is 8 years old with an overactive imagination. Lorraine took a step into the room. And you just broke into my home, Benjamin. You're the one who'll be explaining things to the police. Benjamin's finger hovered over the emergency call button. One press and the police would come. But Lorraine was right. She had explanations ready for everything. And he just committed a crime by breaking in. Would anyone believe him? Would Kay? Here's what's going to happen. Lorraine continued, her voice taking on a lecturing tone. You're going to delete those photos. You're going to apologize for breaking in my home. And we're going to forget this unfortunate misunderstanding ever happened. If you do that, I'll forget about your assault earlier and your breaking and entering now. And if I don't, Lorraine's smile widened. Then I'll make sure Kay knows exactly what kind of man she married. Unstable, violent, paranoid. I'll get a restraining order. Kay will have to choose between her husband and her mother. She paused, and we both know who she'll choose. Benjamin looked at this woman, this monster, standing in her bedroom, surrounded by the trappings of a normal life, and he understood something crucial. Lorraine had been doing this for years, maybe decades. She'd perfected her disguise, learned how to hide in plain sight, how to manipulate and control. She wasn't going to simply confess or break down. She thought she'd won. Thought she could intimidate him into silence like she had with Emma. But Benjamin wasn't Emma. He was a father who'd lost one daughter and would die before losing another. Okay, he said, lowering his phone. You're right. This was a mistake. Relief flashed across Lorraine's face, quickly masked. I'm glad you're being reasonable, but I need to understand something. Benjamin kept his voice steady, conversational. Why Sarah? Why my daughter? I don't know what you're talking about. Just between us. No one else will hear. I need to know why. Something in his tone must have appealed to Lorraine's ego, her need to gloat. She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Sarah was a mistake, she said simply. I wasn't targeting her specifically, but Kay was spending all her time with you, with that child, neglecting me. After her father left me, Benjamin knew Kay's father hadn't left. He'd died a heart attack, but he didn't interrupt. I needed Kay. She was supposed to take care of me, but she chose you instead. So you kill my daughter to punish Kay? I killed your daughter to remind Kay what's important. Family. Real family. Lorraine's expression softened into something almost wistful. I thought losing Sarah would break you two apart. That Kay would come back home, back to me. But it did the opposite. Brought you closer together. And then Emma came along. The implication hung in the air between them like poison. The others, Benjamin said. The other children in those pictures. Why them? They needed me. Lorraine said like it was obvious. Their parents didn't appreciate them. Didn't deserve them. I was doing them a favor, really. Ending their suffering before the world could hurt them worse. Benjamin's stomach churned with revulsion, but he kept his expression neutral. Keep her talking. Keep her confessing. How many? 13, counting Sarah. Pride crept into Lorraine's voice. Over 23 years. And no one ever suspected. No one ever knew. Because I'm careful, Benjamin. I'm patient. I wait for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances. And I never, ever leave evidence that can't be explained away. Until now. Lorraine blinked, the spell of her confession breaking. No, not now. Because you're going to delete those photos and forget this conversation happened. Or Emma will be number 14. The threat was delivered casually, matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. Benjamin felt something inside him crystallize into pure, cold purpose. He couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Lorraine would talk her way out of it, and Emma would be in more danger. He needed a different approach. A better plan. I'll delete the photos, he said. Smart choice. Benjamin pulled up the photo app, made a show of selecting the images, and hit delete. Lorraine watched with satisfaction. What she didn't know was that Benjamin had already enabled automatic cloud backup on his phone. The photos were deleted from his device, but they were safely stored online, accessible from any computer. There, he said. Gone. Good. Now get out of my house, and let's never speak of this again. Benjamin left, walking slowly to his truck, aware of Lorraine watching from the window. He drove away carefully, observing all traffic laws, his mind already working through the next steps. Lorraine had made a mistake. She confessed to him, thinking the confession would die in that room. But Benjamin had one advantage she didn't know about. His best friend from college, Marcus Chun, was a criminal psychologist who consulted with the FBI. They'd stayed close over the years, meeting for basketball once a month and beers after. Marcus had access to resources, knowledge, and most importantly, he believed Benjamin. When Benjamin got home, Emma was waiting in her room, her small suitcase packed, and sitting by the door. Mr. Whiskers peeked out from the partially unzipped top. Did you see it, Daddy? I saw it, sweetheart. And I took pictures. We're going to fix this. Is Grandma going to hurt Mommy? Benjamin sat on Emma's bed, pulling her into his lap like he used to when she was smaller. No, I won't let her. But I need to ask you to be very brave for a little while longer. Can you do that? Emma nodded against his chest. Mommy's going to come home soon, and Grandma's probably going to call her. Grandma's going to say some things about me, things that aren't true, and Mommy might be upset. But I need you to trust that I'm handling this, okay? No matter what happens. Okay, Daddy. They sat there for a while, father and daughter, in the quiet safety of Emma's room. Outside, the sun tracked westward, shadows lengthening across the lawn Benjamin had been mowing when his world turned inside out. When Kay's car pulled into the driveway, just after 7, Benjamin was ready. He'd rehearsed what to say, how to approach this. He had to be careful. Kay loved her mother, had been manipulated by her for years. One wrong move, and he could lose his wife along with everything else. Kay came through the door, looking exhausted, her scrubs wrinkled from the long shift. But her expression when she saw Benjamin was tight with anger. "My mother called me," she said, not bothering with hello. "She said you broke into her house, that you've been acting paranoid and aggressive." "Ben, what the hell is going on?" Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by her mother's raised voice. Kay looked up, saw her, and her expression softened slightly. "Emma, honey, go back to your room for a minute, okay? Daddy and I need to talk." "But Mom." "Now, Emma." Emma retreated, but Benjamin could feel her listening from the hallway. "Your mother," Benjamin said carefully, twisted Emma's arm behind her back this afternoon. Hard enough to leave marks. Emma was terrified. Kay's eyes widened. "What?" "No." Mom said Emma was being disrespectful, and she was just. "Kay, look at me." Benjamin stepped closer, keeping his voice low and urgent. "I saw the marks. I heard what Lorraine said to our daughter. This isn't about me being paranoid. Something is very wrong with your mother. She's grieving. Her husband died 6 months ago. She's alone." She threatened Emma. That stopped Kay cold. "What do you mean?" Benjamin chose his words with surgical precision. "I can't tell you everything right now because I need to protect you. But I need you to trust me. Please. Have I ever given you a reason not to?" Kay's anger wavered, uncertainty creeping in. She looked at Benjamin, really looked at him, and seemed to see something in his face that gave her pause. "Let me talk to Emma," she said finally. They went upstairs together. Emma was sitting on her bed, Mr. Whiskers clutched in her arms. When she saw her mother, she burst into fresh tears. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you fight." Kay gathered Emma into her arms, running gentle hands over her daughter's hair. "Sure, baby, it's okay. Nobody's fighting. Can you show me where Grandma grabbed you?" Emma rolled up her sleeve. The marks had darkened into distinct, finger-shaped bruises. Kay's face went pale. She looked at Benjamin, then back at Emma. "Honey, why did Grandma grab you like this?" "Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. In her closet. And she said if I told Daddy, she'd make me disappear like the other one." "The other one?" Kay's voice was barely a whisper. Emma nodded miserably. "There were pictures, Mommy. Kids with red excess on them. And toys that didn't belong to Grandma. And..." She hesitated, looking at Benjamin. "It's okay," he said. "Tell Mommy what you saw." There was a picture of a girl who looked like me and Daddy. She had a red X too. Kay stood up slowly, her face unreadable. She walked to the window, staring out at nothing. The silence stretched so long that Benjamin wondered if he'd lost her. Then she spoke, her voice strange and distant. "When I was 12, I had a best friend named Melissa Bradford. She lived 3 houses down. We did everything together, school, sleepovers, everything. One summer, she just vanished. The police said she probably ran away, that there'd been problems at home. But I knew Melissa. She wouldn't have left without telling me." Benjamin felt ice forming in his veins. "My mother was so helpful during the search. She organized volunteers, brought food to Melissa's parents, even helped look through the woods behind her neighborhood. Everyone said how wonderful she was, how supportive." Kay turned to face Benjamin, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I found Melissa's bracelet in my mother's sewing basket 2 months later. The one with the plastic beads that spelled out her name. When I asked Mom about it, she said Melissa must have left it at our house during a sleepover, and she'd been meaning to return it." "Did you believe her?" "I was 12. Of course I believed her. She was my mother." Kay's voice cracked. "But sometimes, late at night, I'd remember things. How Mom always seemed annoyed when Melissa and I spent time together. How she'd make little comments about Melissa's family, about how they didn't deserve such a sweet girl. How Mom was the last person to see Melissa before she disappeared." She walked to Emma, knelt down, and took her daughter's hands. "Baby, I need you to be very, very honest with me. Everything you saw in Grandma's closet, Every detail. Can you tell me? Emma told her. Every picture, every object, every horrible detail. And when she was done, Kay sat on the floor and cried. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Benjamin sat beside her, holding her as she grieved for the mother she'd thought she knew, for the monster she'd actually been protecting. When the tears finally subsided, Kay looked up at Benjamin with red-rimmed eyes. We have to stop her, before she hurts anyone else. I know, but we have to be smart about it. She's had years to perfect her cover story. If we go to the police with just Emma's testimony and some photos, she'll explain it all away. Then what do we do? Benjamin thought of Marcus, of the FBI resources his friend could access. He thought of Lorraine's confidence, her arrogance, her absolute certainty that she'd never be caught. We make her confess, he said, publicly, on record, in a way she can't take back or explain away. Kay wiped her eyes, and Benjamin saw something shift in her expression. The grief was still there, but underneath it burned something harder. Determination. Rage. Tell me what you need me to do. They talked late into the night, formulating a plan while Emma slept in their bed, safe between them. By the time dawn broke through the bedroom window, they knew what had to be done. The trap was set. Now, they just had to spring it. Morning arrived too quickly. Benjamin stood in his workshop, running his hands over the smooth surface of the cherrywood dresser, trying to calm his racing mind. In 3 hours, he'd be putting their plan into motion. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake and Lorraine would slip away, free to hurt more children, to threaten Emma again. His phone buzzed. Marcus Chun. Got your message, Marcus said without preamble. Ben, are you serious about this? 13 victims. I'm serious. I saw the evidence. And you broke into her house to get it. I know. But Marcus, she confessed to me. She admitted killing Sarah and 12 other children. I just need her to do it again. Somewhere it matters. Silence on the line. Then, I'm driving down. Don't do anything until I get there. For hours, okay? Ben. 4 hours. Thanks, Marcus. Benjamin pocketed his phone and headed inside. Kay was at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept. Lorraine called, she said. She wants to meet with both of us. Says we need to have a family discussion about Emma's behavior and our marriage. When? Tonight. Her house. 7 o'clock. Kay's jaw tightened. She thinks she's in control. Thinks she can manipulate us into compliance. Good. Let her think that. Emma wandered in, looking small and vulnerable in her pajamas. Kay pulled her daughter close, kissing the top of her head. How about pancakes, sweetheart? While Kay and Emma made breakfast, Benjamin reviewed the plan once more. Marcus would arrive by noon with portable recording equipment that looked like a simple pen and watch. They'd with the devices to dinner at Lorraine's house. Marcus would stay nearby, monitoring the feed from his car. All they had to do was get Lorraine talking, get her to confess again. It was risky. Lorraine wasn't stupid, but she was arrogant, and arrogance made people careless. Marcus arrived right on schedule, pulling up in his sensible Honda sedan. He'd put on weight since Benjamin had seen him last, his face rounder, laugh lines deeper. But his eyes were sharp as he surveyed the house, already analyzing, cataloging threats. Let me see the photos, he said. Benjamin showed him the images he'd retrieved from cloud storage. Marcus studied each one, his expression growing darker. When he reached the picture of Sarah, he let out a slow breath. Jesus, Ben, can you use this? Legally? It's compromised evidence from an illegal search. But Marcus pulled out his laptop. If we can get her to confess on recording, I can cross-reference these photos with cold cases. Lorraine's been active for 23 years. There have to be unsolved disappearances matching these kids' descriptions. If I can connect just 3 or 4 of these photos to real cases, combined with a recorded confession, we'd have enough for a warrant to search her house officially. And if we can't get her to confess, Marcus met his eyes. Then you'd better have a backup plan. They spent the afternoon preparing. Marcus showed Kay and Benjamin how to use the recording devices, how to position them for optimal audio, how to prompt Lorraine without making it obvious. The equipment was sophisticated, completely undetectable to anyone not specifically looking for it. The key, Marcus explained, is to make her feel safe. Powerful. People like Lorraine love to gloat, to show off how clever they've been. Feed her ego. Let her think she's won. At 6:30, Benjamin and Kay left Emma with Marcus, who'd parked his car down the street from Lorraine's house. Emma had been brave all day, but now she clung to her mother. "You'll come back?" she whispered. "Always," Kay promised. The drive to Lorraine's house was silent. Kay stared out the window, her hands twisted together in her lap. Benjamin reached over and squeezed her knee. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I can handle it alone. She's my mother, my responsibility." Kay turned to look at him, her expression haunted. "I brought her into our lives, into Emma's life. I didn't see what she was. I should have seen it. She fooled everyone, Kay. That's what predators do. Not everyone. You never trusted her." Benjamin didn't know what to say to that. It was true. His instinct about Lorraine had been screaming warnings from the beginning, but he'd ignored them for Kay's sake, and Sarah had paid the price. They pulled into Lorraine's driveway. The house looked peaceful in the evening light, normal and suburban. Benjamin thought of all the horror hidden behind that facade and felt his resolve harden. "Ready?" he asked. Kay nodded, touching the pen in her purse, the recording device. Benjamin checked his watch, the other recorder. Both were active, transmitting to Marcus's laptop. Lorraine answered the door with a warm smile, as if yesterday's confrontation had never happened. "Kay, darling." "Benjamin." Come in, come in." "I made pot roast." The house smelled like home cooking. Classical music played softly from speakers in the living room. Everything was designed to create an atmosphere of warmth and safety. But Benjamin saw it now for what it was: camouflage. They settled in the dining room, plates of pot roast and vegetables before them. Lorraine chatted about her day, about the neighbors, about anything except the elephant in the room. She was establishing normalcy, creating a baseline that would make Benjamin and Kay seem unstable if they brought up yesterday's events. Finally, Kay set down her fork. "Mom, we need to talk about Emma." "Of course, dear." Lorraine's expression shifted to concern. "I've been so worried. The child seems to have developed some troubling behavioral issues. She told me you grabbed her. Hurt her. Is that what she said?" Lorraine shook her head sadly. "I was helping her with a disagreement she and I were having. Children sometimes exaggerate when they don't get their way, you know that." Benjamin watched Kay struggle, saw her fighting against years of conditioning to believe her mother, to make excuses. "Emma said you threatened her." Kay continued, her voice stronger. "Said you'd make her disappear." Lorraine laughed, light and airy. "Disappear? Like a magic trick?" "Kay, honestly, your daughter watches too much television. Like you made Melissa Bradford disappear." The silence that followed was absolute. Lorraine's smile froze on her face, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Then, slowly, she set the fork down. "Melissa ran away. Everyone knows that. You have her bracelet. She left it at our house." "Stop lying." Kay's voice cracked like a whip. "Stop lying to me, Mother. I know what you are. I know what you've done." Lorraine studied her daughter with those cold, calculating eyes. Benjamin could almost see her mind working, assessing how much they knew, how much was guesswork. "I don't know what Benjamin has told you," she said carefully, "but that man has never liked me. He's poisoned you against me, turned you against your own mother. Benjamin didn't poison me against anyone. I poisoned myself by being blind for so long, by making excuses for you." Kay pulled out her phone, brought up the photos Benjamin had taken. "Explain these." Lorraine glanced at the screen, and something flickered across her face. "Fear? No. Annoyance." "Where did you get those?" "Does it matter?" "Yes, actually. Because those photos were taken illegally during a break-in, which means they're inadmissible in court. Benjamin made sure of that with his little stunt yesterday." She was right, and Benjamin knew it. But they had the recording now. They just needed her to keep talking. "Why, Mom?" Kay's voice broke. "Why did you kill Melissa? Why Sarah? Why any of them?" "I didn't." "Yes, you did." Kay slammed her hand on the table, plates jumping. "Stop treating me like I'm stupid. I was stupid for years, but not anymore. Tell me why." Lorraine stared at her daughter for a long moment. Then, inexplicably, she smiled. You really want to know? Yes. Because they were all like you. Special. Loved. And their parents didn't appreciate them. Didn't deserve them. Lorraine's voice took on a dreamy quality. I gave those children peace. Released them before the world could corrupt them, hurt them, turn them into disappointments. Benjamin's blood ran cold. She was actually saying it. Actually confessing. Melissa was getting too old, too independent. Lorraine continued. She was pulling you away from me, filling your head with ideas about sleepovers and secrets I wasn't part of. So I fixed it. Invited her over when you were at your piano lesson. Made her a special lemonade. She went to sleep and never woke up. So peaceful. So perfect. Kay's face had gone white, but she pressed on. And Sarah? Sarah. Lorraine said the name with something almost like affection. That one hurt, Kay. Truly. Because I didn't want to hurt you. But you'd chosen Benjamin over me. Chosen his daughter over your own mother. I thought maybe if Sarah was gone, you'd remember who was really important. But you failed that test, didn't you? Got pregnant again. Had another child to replace the one-eyed, to replace Sarah. And the others? Benjamin spoke for the first time, keeping his voice neutral despite the rage boiling in his chest. All 13. 13. Lorraine savored the number. Each one carefully chosen. Each one a mercy, really. I waited for the perfect circumstances, created opportunities that looked like accidents or runaways. The pool drowning. The hiking trip where little Timothy wandered off. The sleepover where Jessica didn't wake up. I'm very good at what I do, Benjamin. 23 years, and no one ever suspected. Until now, Kay said. Until now, Lorraine agreed. Because your husband couldn't leave well enough alone. Had to go breaking into my home, photographing my private things. But it doesn't matter. Those photos prove nothing. You have no physical evidence linking me to any deaths. No bodies to exhume. No witnesses. Just the word of a grief-stricken man and his child with an overactive imagination. She stood, collected the dinner plates with calm efficiency. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete those photos again. You're going to get marriage counseling. Benjamin clearly has some paranoid tendencies that need addressing. And we're never going to speak of this unpleasantness again. Because if you try to go to the police, I'll make sure everyone knows how unstable you both are. How you broke into my home, made wild accusations, tried to alienate me from my grandchild. Lorraine carried the plates to the kitchen, still talking. And if you persist in this fantasy, if you try to keep Emma from me, I'll have no choice but to handle things my own way. Children are so fragile, after all. Accidents happen. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Kay looked at Benjamin. He gave her the smallest nod. They had it. Every word. Marcus had the recording. You're right, Mom. Kay said, her voice hollow. We can't prove anything. Lorraine returned from the kitchen, triumphant. I'm glad you're being reasonable. Now, I think it's best if Benjamin leaves. You and I need to have a mother-daughter talk about the state of your marriage. Benjamin stood, playing his part. Kay, go, she said. I'll be fine. He walked to the door, turned back to see Lorraine watching him with those reptilian eyes, so certain of her victory. Benjamin let her see his defeat, his frustration. Let her think she'd won. Outside, he walked to his truck, started the engine, drove down the block. Then he parked and jogged back through the trees to where Marcus waited. Did you get it? Benjamin asked, breathless. Marcus turned his laptop screen. The audio file was there, saved, backed up to 3 different cloud services. Every word of Lorraine's confession, crystal clear. Got it, Marcus said. Multiple counts of first-degree murder. Admission of premeditation. Threats against a child. Ben, this is enough. I can have FBI agents here within the hour. Do it. But Marcus, Kay's still in there. I know. I've already called it in. They'll move fast. 20 minutes later, 3 FBI vehicles and 2 county sheriff's cars converged on Lorraine's house with lights, but no sirens. Benjamin watched from Marcus's car as agents approached the door, as Lorraine answered looking confused and concerned. The perfect, innocent homeowner. He couldn't hear what was said, but he saw the moment Lorraine understood. Her expression didn't change much, just a slight tightening around her eyes, a fractional shift in her posture. Then she smiled, nodded, and held out her wrist for the handcuffs. Kay emerged a few minutes later, looking shell-shocked. She found Benjamin in the crowd of law enforcement, and they held each other while police swarmed into Lorraine's house. They found the closet, the photographs, the trophies, and in the basement, they found something else, a hidden room behind the water heater. Inside were meticulous journals detailing every murder, every victim, every perfect crime. Lorraine had documented everything, unable to resist recording her cleverness for posterity. The journals would be her undoing. The trial began 8 months later. Emma didn't have to testify. The evidence was overwhelming. Lorraine's journals, the recording, the photographs, DNA evidence linking several of the trophies to missing children cases across 3 states. The prosecution brought in family after family who'd lost children to unexplained accidents or disappearances, showing how Lorraine had been connected to each one. Benjamin sat in the courtroom every day, watching as the woman who'd killed his daughter faced justice. Lorraine showed no remorse, no emotion except mild annoyance when certain facts were presented. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on 13 counts of first-degree murder. Guilty on multiple counts of child endangerment. Guilty on assault charges for hurting Emma. During sentencing, the judge asked Lorraine if she had anything to say. She stood, looked directly at the families of her victims, and smiled. "They're all in a better place now," she said. "You should be thanking me." The judge sentenced her to 13 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. In the months that followed, Emma started therapy. She had nightmares, would wake screaming about closets and read excess. But slowly, with help and love and time, she began to heal. The fear in her eyes faded, replaced gradually by the spark of the girl she'd been before. Kay struggled with guilt, with the knowledge that her mother had been a monster hiding in plain sight. She quit her job at the hospital for a while, couldn't bear to help heal people when she'd failed to see the sickness in her own mother. But eventually, with therapy of her own, she found her way back. Benjamin returned to his workshop, to the quiet satisfaction of creating beautiful things from raw materials. He expanded his business, took on an apprentice, taught classes at the community college. But some nights, he'd stop what he was doing and just sit, remembering Sarah's laugh, her gap-toothed smile, the way she'd run to him when he came home from work. One evening, almost a year after Lorraine's sentencing, Emma found him in the workshop. She'd grown taller, her face losing its baby roundness. She watched him stand a chair leg for a moment, then spoke. "Daddy, I've been thinking about Sarah, about my sister." Benjamin set down the sandpaper. "What about her? I wish I'd known her. I wish Grandma hadn't." "I know, sweetheart. But if it hadn't happened, if Grandma hadn't hurt Sarah, you and Mom might not have stayed together. And I wouldn't exist." Emma's voice was thoughtful, working through complicated emotions. "Is it okay that I'm glad I exist, even though something bad had to happen first?" Benjamin pulled Emma into a hug. This brave, perceptive girl who'd saved more lives than she'd ever know. "It's okay to be glad you exist, Emma. Sarah would have loved you, would have been so proud of you." "How do you know?" "Because you're exactly the kind of person worth protecting, worth fighting for." And Sarah knew about protecting people. She got that from me. They stood together in the workshop, surrounded by sawdust and the smell of wood and varnish. And for the first time in years, Benjamin felt something like peace. The nightmares would never completely go away. The guilt would always linger, the what-ifs and should-haves. But they had survived. They had stopped a monster. And they had each other. Several months later, Benjamin received a letter from Marcus. The FBI had used Lorraine's case as a breakthrough, identifying patterns in unsolved child disappearances going back 30 years. It turned out Lorraine had been active even longer than her journals indicated, with potential victims before she'd started keeping detailed records. In total, they'd identified 19 possible victims, with strong evidence in 14 cases. Families who'd spent decades wondering what happened to their children finally had answers. Not good answers, not happy answers, but answers nonetheless. One family, the Bradfords, Melissa's parents, reached out to Kay. The meeting was difficult, full of tears and apologies and shared grief. But afterward, Kay seemed lighter somehow, like she'd finally begun to forgive herself. Emma continued to thrive. She started a new school, made friends, joined the soccer team. She still had Mr. Whiskers, and she still slept with a night light, but the terror that had gripped her was fading. She was learning to be a kid again. As for Benjamin, he found purpose in helping other families navigate the aftermath of trauma. He started a support group for parents of missing children, using his experience to guide others through the impossible grief of not knowing. Marcus connected him with victim advocacy groups, and Benjamin discovered a talent for listening, for providing comfort without platitudes. One support group meeting, about 2 years after Lorraine's sentencing, a new member arrived. A father whose daughter had been missing for 6 months. The police had leads, but no answers. The man's eyes held the same desperate, hollow look Benjamin remembered from his own reflection after Sarah died. "Does it get better?" the man asked. "Does the not knowing ever stop eating you alive?" Benjamin thought of Sarah, of Emma, of the closet full of photographs, and the monster who'd hidden among them for decades. "I can't promise it gets better," he said honestly, "but I can promise you're not alone. And I can promise that if there are answers out there, we'll help you find them." After the meeting, the man approached Benjamin, shook his hand. "Thank you for understanding, for not giving me false hope." "Hope doesn't have to be false," Benjamin said. "Sometimes hope is just the decision to keep moving forward, even when you can't see the path." That night, Benjamin stood in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep. Kay joined him, slipping her hand into his. "She's going to be okay," Kay whispered. "We're all going to be okay." And for the first time in years, Benjamin believed it. The story of Lorraine Willard became a cautionary tale, a reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. They look like grandmothers and volunteers and helpful neighbors. They smile and bake cookies and earn trust, all while hiding unimaginable darkness. But the story was also about survival, about a father who trusted his instincts and protected his child, about a mother who found the courage to face a painful truth, about a little girl who was brave enough to speak up, even when threatened. Emma kept the memory of Sarah alive in her own way. She'd ask Benjamin to tell stories about her sister, the way she laughed, her favorite games, her fearless approach to life. And in the telling, Sarah became real again, more than just a tragedy, more than just a victim. She became a person, loved and remembered. On what would have been Sarah's 11th birthday, Benjamin, Kay, and Emma visited the cemetery. They brought flowers, sunflowers, Sarah's favorites. Emma had made a card, drawing a picture of 2 sisters holding hands. "I would have liked having a big sister," Emma said, placing the card on Sarah's grave. "She would have liked having you," Benjamin replied. They stood together in the warm sunshine, a family forged through loss and pain, but strengthened by love and truth. The scars would always be there. The grief would never completely fade, but they had survived. They had won. And in the end, that was enough. Years passed. Emma grew into a confident young woman with her father's eyes and her mother's determination. She studied psychology in college, driven by a desire to understand and help others who'd experienced trauma. She never forgot the little girl she'd been, trembling in her grandmother's grip, or the father who'd believed her when it mattered most. Kay returned to nursing, finding renewed purpose in helping heal others. She volunteered at a children's advocacy center, using her experience to identify signs of abuse that others might miss. She transformed her guilt into action, her pain into protection for other children. Benjamin's carpentry business grew, but he never lost sight of what mattered. He taught Emma woodworking in the same workshop where they'd once clung to each other in fear. Together they built things, furniture, hope, a future unmarred by the shadows of the past. The workshop became a place of healing, where Emma could work through difficult emotions with her hands, creating beauty from raw materials, just like her father had taught her. On Emma's 18th birthday, Benjamin presented her with a special gift, a jewelry box made from cherry wood, the same wood he'd been working on the day he'd heard her screaming. Inside was Sarah's stuffed rabbit, cleaned and carefully restored. "I want you to have this," he said. "Sarah would want you to have it." Emma held the rabbit gently, tears streaming down her face. "Tell me about her again. Tell me everything." So Benjamin did. He told her about Sarah's laugh, her fearlessness, her joy. He told her about the day she was born, the way she'd gripped his finger with her tiny hand. He told her about bedtime stories and scraped knees and 1,000 small moments that made up a life, even a brief one. And he told her the most important truth of all. "You saved more than just yourself when you spoke up that day, Emma. You saved every child who might have come after. You're a hero. Both of my daughters are heroes." Emma wiped her eyes, holding the rabbit close. "I just did what you taught me to do. I told the truth, even when I was scared. And that," Benjamin said, "is the bravest thing anyone can do." The McCarty family had been through darkness that would have destroyed most people. But they'd come through it together, scarred but unbroken. They'd faced a monster and won. They'd sought justice and found it. They protected the innocent and honored the lost. In the end, that was the legacy they chose, not as victims but as survivors. Not as people broken by tragedy, but as people who'd found strength in each other. And on quiet evenings, when Emma was home from college and the three of them sat together in the living room, Benjamin would look at his family and feel something he thought he'd lost forever. Gratitude for this moment, for these people, for the simple, precious gift of being together. The lawn still needed mowing. The workshop still called to him with unfinished projects. Life continued with its mundane demands and small joys. But now, when Benjamin stepped outside into the sunshine, he no longer feared what might be hiding in the shadows. The monster was caged. His family was safe. His daughters, both of them, were remembered and honored. That was victory enough. That was everything. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.